Hey guys, welcome to part 4. In this video, we're not going to do any Firebase code. We're just going to build out some views in AutoLayout. I'll show you guys a couple methods that I like to use. One is just an interface builder and also using just code to lay out your views. So what I want to build here is kind of just the first feature of our app. We'll have like a Twitter or Facebook feed that the user can scroll through and see new posts. And of course, eventually we want them to be able to add posts to that feed. But in this video, we're just going to use mock data and build out the views. So what I'm thinking is something like a Twitter feed. What I like about the Twitter feed is that it really handles a variety of content well. Links to other sites, just plain text. Get all these buttons here, videos and GIFs and all that sort of thing. And I think it just looks pretty nice. So we'll do that. As opposed to like an Instagram feed, which is like, there's always a photo, or video content. And I kind of like the variety on Twitter. So usually when I'm designing a UI, I kind of just browse around, see, you know, different designs that people have made, and which one I would want to use in my app. If you see one on sites like this, I'm on UI8.net. That's just one of them. If you see one you like, obviously go ahead and buy and support these designers. But a lot of times I'm just looking and I'm just seeing what good ideas I could try to replicate, and then add my own spin on. So I kind of like this one here, the Lydia UI kit. That screen's pretty nice. And also the one I liked here was this diamond one. I kind of want the posts to look something like that. You'll see this is kind of a new style to have um, these soft shadows, not as many borders, not as many like colored cells, just these shadows around images and things of importance. So I think that looks nice. We'll go for something like that. May not get all that detail in our first time around, but that'll be the end goal. So the first thing I'm going to do is build the post table view cell. That's going to be the cell that actually contains, displays the post data. So I'll go to New, File, create a Cocoa Touch class, call it post table view cell, and we want it to be a subclass of the table view cell, and also create the zip file. So that's going to create two files for us. One of them is going to be a Swift file, which is going to contain all the code, handle the logic of the cell, and then we create our zip file, which is our interface builder file. And you'll see that up here, they're connected. The custom class is post table view cell, so we'll be able to link up all the views, all the subviews to the class. I'm going to set the background to just a light gray so that we can see what we're adding to it. And I'm going to put a container view here. Well, it's just a regular view, but I'm going to think of it as a container view. That's going to contain all of our subviews so that we have a nice border spacing around. And to add constraints, we can click this button here, add new constraints. And we can set new constraints. So this is the top, this is the leading constraint, this is the trailing, and this is the bottom. So I'm going to set them all to, say, 8 for now. I'm going to check off constraint to margins, and then we can set add for constraints. So you can see that that now is attached nicely. If we change the overall size of this view, it's going to react quite nicely to that. Now I'm going to add our image view. So that's going to contain, the profile picture of whoever posted the post. And I want to make sure that this is inside of the view that we just added, our container view. A quicker way to add constraints as opposed to just clicking this button, I like to hold down Control. So I hold down Control, and now I get this blue stretchy line, and I can kind of just select the object that I want it to be constrained to. So I want this image view to be connected on the top constraint and the leading constraint, this left one, to its parent view. So I click that there, and then I hold Shift, and I click leading, I click top, and then I click add constraints and let go of Shift. And so see, it's added it here. Now these constraints are incomplete. It's showing it red, and it's going to tell us there's a few problems. It's saying the image view needs a constraint for its height, and it needs one for its width. So it really doesn't know, Xcode doesn't know, how big is it? Is it going to look like this? Should it look like this? So we haven't told it enough information. So we've got to add a couple more things. Again, hold Control, click and drag. I'm going to click it onto itself, the image view. Holding Shift, I'm going to add a width and an aspect ratio. So now if I want to edit these constraints, what I'll do is click this ruler button here at the top, this size inspector, and I'm going to see a nice list of the constraints that I've added to this UI image view. So I want the width to be, let's say, maybe like 40 pixels, and the ratio I want it to be 1 to 1. So that's 1 width to 1 height. That's going to make it nice and even. I don't actually have an image to set here yet, I don't think, so I'll just make the background, we'll just make it this red color. Okay, so that's going to be the image view. I'm going to add a label now. I'm going to set some horizontal spacing between this label and the image view. And then I'm going to set some top spacing here. Okay, so this label can contain our username. Let's maybe make it semi-bold, bump it up to 18 or something. Then I'm going to put another label here and put some vertical spacing and some horizontal spacing to the image again. For the top spacing, I'm going to set it something low, like 2, and I want the leading to be equal to this label, so that's fine. That's going to be good. This one's going to be like our subtitle, so it can be, say something like 15 minutes ago, and we can drop that down to like 12 points and set that to like a lighter color, maybe light gray. And we're going to set one more label view here, stretch that out there, and I'm going to add vertical spacing to the image view. I'm going to add horizontal spacing to the image view, and bottom and trailing to the container. Let's go and edit these values here, because right now they're a bit off, so we'll say 8, 8, and just do 8 all around, really. So this is going to be the the body of the text. So for instance, we could just put something like this is the greatest post ever on this app. And cool. That's our view. And everything is, going to respond nicely, because the height of this post, as well as the width of this post, really, depending on device, is going to be varying a lot. So auto layout's important to, respond to these changes. One thing about this lit UI label view, I want to set the number of lines to 0, so that it will, if it's a longer post, here is the second sentence. I can't spell. We're going to see that it stretches there. That's going to bother me. There. So we will see that it folds over, it wraps to a second line. So that's good. So now let's add a table view to the home view controller. So that's this one here with the logged in. Actually, we'll remove that logged in label, but this is where the table view is going to go. And I'm going to add it in code instead of in the storyboard, just to show you how to do it here instead. So add a table view, instantiate that table view, set the frame to the view bounds, and style to plain, and say view table, add subview table view. Set the background color of it to something that we can see, like blue, just so we know it's there. So before we can add the constraints, we need to access the view's layout guides. So I'm going to add a variable called layout guide. It'll be a UI layout guide, and I'm going to say layout guide equal view safe area layout guide. And this safe area layout guide is new to iOS 11, so it's going to give me an error probably. There we go. Safe area layout guide is only available on iOS 11 or newer. So we're going to wrap this in a check. And so it says if available, if iOS 11 is available, then do this. Otherwise, we need to fall back on earlier versions. And those earlier version is layout margins guide. Okay, so the safe area is new to iOS 11, and it's really for the iPhone X. Kind of handles all the differences in the guide for the the iPhone X with the weird top border thing and the bottom border here. So now we can set table view, and we can start adding our constraints. So set the leading anchor is going to be constraint equal to anchor. So we'll use the layout guide here and say leading anchor. Then we say is active equals true. So that activates that constraint. Kind of like clicking the red line in that previous part. I'm going to add 4 of these because we'll need to do it for each anchor. So we'll say top anchor, and the top anchor is layout guide, and then the trailing anchor, and then the bottom anchor. So these should all be ready to go, and if we run it, okay, here's our table view, and it looks good. It's fitting properly, but there's no data in the table, so let's set up the delegate methods of the table. Say UI table view delegate and UI table view data source. And that's going to require us to implement a few methods here. One of them is the number of sections. We'll just say 1. Next is the number of rows in a section, and we'll say 12 for now. And then a cell for index path. Before we can do this, let's register the cell that we made to the table view. So the way we do that is I'm going to say let cell nib equal UI nib. That's going to take the name, this name here, this post table view cell name. So I'll type post table view cell. Bundle is nil. And now we can say table view register nib cell nib for a reuse identifier. So this identifier is going to help us identify this cell. We'll just call it a post cell. And we're going to use that same string here when in the cell for row method. Say let cell equal table view dq cell with identifier for index path. So the identifier is the same one, this post cell. Put index path there, and then say as, because we know this is going to be the post table view cell .zib is the class type is post table view cell. So we say as like that, and then we say return cell. Okay, now one more thing we need to add to get this to work is reload the table view here. So call it reload data, and that's going to make sure that the table runs through these methods here. So it's going to say 1 section, 12 cells, and the cells are going to be of this type. So let's run it. Okay, nothing happened, and that's good because we kind of messed up. We completely forgot to attach the delegate to this class, table view data source equals self. And I'm going to remove that blue background color because it's kind of annoying. Okay, it looks good. We've got it all set up with our post cell, and we've got 12 cells, so everything's working. Let's get this hooked up to some mock data before we move on, which means we're going to need to create a few data models. So I'm going to create a group called models, and I'm going to create a file called Swift. It's going to be a Swift file, and it's going to be called post. So our post class is going to have an ID. We'll just need that probably eventually. A author and a, let's see, and it's going to need some text. Okay, say init with set the parameters. So say ID is string, author is string, and text is string. So say self ID equals ID, self author equals author, and self text equals text. Okay, so let's add some posts to our home view controller. So we'll have an array called posts, and it'll consist of a list of posts. So we need an ID, an author, so it's Donald Trump, and he'll say Bigley, and we'll have someone else like, ID 2 of Luke Skywalker saying, I did not like The Last Jedi because I did not get to use my awesome Jedi powers. And we'll have, what else is on Twitter? Come on, let's go. 3, author will be, I don't know, Drizzy Drake. Spitting that fire while I smoke by the fire. I don't know, man. Anyways, now let's hook up the number of rows to post count. So that's going to be the number of items in the post array. Is going to be the number of rows in the section, and we want to somehow set the post data to this cell. But before we do that, we're going to need to hook up the labels and the image and everything to the post class. So what do we got here? We have post table view cell, and I'm going to click and drag these elements across screen. So again, I hold control to get this blue line, and I just place it like that. So we'll say username label. Let's get some more space here. Say profile image view. This is the subtitle label, because it may not just be time, maybe something else. And I'll say post text label. And then let's add a function in here called set post. So we're going to pass in a post to this function, and then we can set the username label text to post author, and the post text label text to the post text. And that's all we'll do for now, but we're going to have to put more in there later. That way, in the cell for row at method, we can say cell set post, and we call our post array, and we want the item in the array at the index path row. So let's see here. There we go. And we got our posts, we have our data. You see that the cell is actually expanding nicely to fit the text. And that's because we've got it all set up in AutoLayout, and the table is kind of calculating the height for us. So that's good. That doesn't always work depending on the kind of content that we want to put in here, but that works for now. If we encounter any problems, we'll fix it later. Before we finish, I just want to add a little bit of polish to our post table because it's not looking amazing right now. And also our table view has these weird blank cells at the bottom here. So one of the ways to remove that is to set the table view, table footer view, to a UI view, kind of like an empty UI view. So that's going to get rid of that. Before we load it though, I just want to make these changes in here. I feel like there's maybe a bit too much spacing here. I kind of just want a gap in between these cells and then a little bit of a border around. I'm going to go ahead and remove that light gray color. We're not going to need that anymore. So that was in the post area. I would set this to default. And all the content here, let's see, we've got like the image, a leading space of 0. I'm going to set that 8 of 8. I'm going to set that to 0. I'm going to set the top space to 0 as well. For the username, I'm going to set the top to 0. And for this label at the bottom, I'm going to set it to 0 and 0 as well there. And that might look a little bit better. What else did I want to do? Let's set the let's round the profile image view. I'm going to change it from this red to a very light gray, something like that. And so in the post table view, in awake from nib, I'm going to do profile image view, layer, corner radius, and we want to set the radius to half of the height of the image view itself. So say I bounds height divided by 2, and then we just need to see set flare clips to bounds. Let's run it. And it looks good. Yeah, a lot cleaner, simpler. Still maybe this spacing is a bit too small or something. We'll figure it out though and improve it over time. But that's all for now. In the next video, we'll hook this up to Firebase, so we're actually downloading real data. We'll let the user post new posts to the data, and we'll get these user profiles working so that the image pops up here, the real image, and it looks a lot better. Okay, thanks for watching.